In the world of global diplomacy, the United States' decision to impose sanctions on China's semiconductor industry wasn't merely a tactical move, it was a bold assertion of technological supremacy. The sanctions, aimed at limiting China's access to advanced chip technologies, were fueled by national security concerns. U.S. officials feared that these semiconductors could strengthen China's military and cyber infrastructure. According to Gina Raimondo, the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, restricting China's access to such critical technologies was necessary to safeguard U.S. national security interests. The stakes were clear. Semiconductors are essential for everything from smartphones to artificial intelligence. By cutting off China's access to advanced chips, the U.S. hoped to slow its technological progress, but the outcome was far more complex. In their bid to slow one rival, the U.S. inadvertently sparked a global tech rivalry of unprecedented magnitude. China's swift countermeasures set the stage for a broader conflict, altering geopolitical landscapes and disrupting global supply chains. In 2021, China imported $432 billion worth of semiconductors, a reflection of its dependence on foreign suppliers. However, by 2023, that figure had fallen to around $230 billion, an astonishing $200 billion drop. This decline wasn't just a reduction in trade, it was a seismic shift toward self-reliance. China's ambitious Made in China 2025 initiative has pumped billions into domestic semiconductor manufacturing, with companies like SMIC, Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation, leading the charge. This investment has driven an impressive leap in China's chip production capabilities, and a recent report from the Financial Times noted a significant increase in China's semiconductor self-sufficiency, signaling a fundamental shift away from foreign dependence. But what does this pivot mean for industries reliant on Western suppliers? And how will it reshape global trade? In 2023, Huawei stunned the industry by unveiling its Mate 60 Pro smartphone, powered by a domestically produced 7-nanometer Kirin chip, an achievement many experts thought China couldn't reach under sanctions. Similarly, Huawei's 5G base stations, now built entirely with Chinese-made components, became central to the country's digital infrastructure. Tech analyst Dan Hutcherson from Tech Insights remarked that China's technological resilience was stronger than many had anticipated. These innovations are more than technical milestones. They're declarations of independence, benefiting consumers with more affordable 5G devices and better access to cutting-edge technology, while putting pressure on global markets to keep pace with China's affordable alternatives. The rise of Chinese-made processors, such as the Longjun series, is making waves across industries from AI to aerospace. These chips are now integrated into supercomputing platforms and defense systems, challenging the notion that only Western tech can dominate these advanced fields. A Reuters report in October 2023 revealed how Chinese companies are using domestic chips to drive industrial robotics and autonomous vehicles, two sectors long controlled by the U.S. The production of 7-nanometer semiconductors by SMIC has enabled China to sidestep export bans while also pushing the envelope on areas like quantum computing. But will these breakthroughs improve global accessibility to technology, or merely intensify competition between tech giants? For companies like Intel and Texas Instruments, the impact of China's tech rise has been felt hard. In Q3 2023, Intel's revenue dropped sharply, with sales to China falling by 27% compared to the previous year. Similarly, Texas Instruments reported a $2.3 billion shortfall due to reduced demand from Chinese clients. As Chinese firms ramp up their domestic production, U.S. companies are losing a crucial revenue stream, once accounting for as much as 30% of annual sales. This raises a troubling question. Are the U.S. sanctions backfiring economically? In 2020, China accounted for 15% of global semiconductor manufacturing, but by 2023, that number nearly doubled to 30%. The growth is fueled by state-backed subsidies and strategic international partnerships. According to a Wall Street Journal report from 2023, Chinese chipmakers have built over 50 new semiconductor fabs in just the past 2 years. This rapid expansion is shaking up global production and challenging traditional leaders like Taiwan's TSMC and South Korea's Samsung. How will this shift impact consumer product pricing? And what effects will it have on markets beyond tech? For South Korea, the effects of the sanctions have been deeply felt. Companies like Samsung and SK Hynix, which rely heavily on the Chinese market, are seeing reduced access to this crucial market. Samsung's semiconductor division reported a 12% revenue drop in Q3 2023, while SK Hynix faced its worst profit loss in years. As Chinese companies improve their DRAM and NAND flash technologies, they are closing the quality gap with their South Korean competitors. Will Samsung's legacy of innovation help it regain its position, or is this a permanent shift? China's impact extends beyond hardware. Domestically developed chips are now powering critical infrastructure, including data centers, telecommunications networks, and AI platforms. In 2023, Nikkei Asia reported that over 60% of China's cloud computing infrastructure was running on Chinese-made chips. This shift not only reduces reliance on foreign suppliers, but strengthens the country's digital infrastructure. For consumers, this transformation is already affecting the market. Electronics prices in China have stabilized, and domestically powered devices are becoming more accessible. But what does this mean for global markets? Will it lead to shortages or price hikes in regions dependent on imports from China? China's chip makers like SMIC and YMTC, Yangtze Memory Technologies Corporation, are emerging as formidable competitors, reshaping the global semiconductor landscape. SMIC's ability to produce advanced 7-nanometer chips is a direct response to U.S. export controls, while YMTC's 232-layer NAND flash memory is setting new standards for consumer electronics. These companies are not just catching up, they're setting benchmarks for performance and efficiency, forcing traditional powerhouses like Intel and TSMC to adapt or fall behind. U.S. sanctions were intended to stifle China's technological growth, but they've inadvertently fueled it. In response, the U.S. has begun exploring countermeasures, such as promoting domestic innovation through subsidies, strengthening alliances with countries like South Korea, and encouraging private sector R&D. But will these efforts be enough to regain the technological lead? The restrictions on China forced the country to invest in research and development at an unprecedented scale, with government spending on semiconductor R&D surpassing $20 billion in 2023 alone. According to a report by MIT Technology Review, the sanctions created a survival mindset among Chinese tech firms, pushing them to innovate faster than expected. This resilience raises an uncomfortable question. Have U.S. policies unwittingly given China the tools to surpass its rivals? In 2023, Chinese companies accounted for 38% of global chip demand, giving China unparalleled influence over global supply chains. Suppliers like ASML and Applied Materials now face a difficult balancing act, complying with U.S. export bans while also protecting their economic interests. What happens when China leverages its purchasing power to reshape global trade? China's recent breakthrough in mass-producing 232-layer NAND flash memory has positioned the country as a leader in high-capacity storage, critical for data-driven industries. This shift, led by YMTC, puts China ahead of competitors like Micron and Western Digital, signaling a major turning point. Could this development shift the epicenter of memory innovation from Silicon Valley to Shenzhen? China's newfound semiconductor self-sufficiency is altering global power dynamics. By securing tech independence, China not only reduces its vulnerability to sanctions, but strengthens its bargaining position on the global stage. Experts like Chris Miller, author of Chip War, argue that China's progress in semiconductors could fundamentally change the geopolitical landscape. This raises a critical question. Could this be the beginning of a new era where technology becomes a key driver of global alliances and economic strategies? As the U.S. China chip war intensifies, the risks of over-relying on technological dominance become increasingly apparent. The conflict highlights the unpredictable consequences of weaponizing technology. As the world becomes more polarized, can nations strike a balance between competition and cooperation in the digital age? This U.S.-China semiconductor battle is not just about rivalry. It's a case study in the unintended consequences of geopolitical strategy. To avoid further fragmentation, international cooperation in innovation and trade policies may be necessary to stabilize markets and foster shared growth. But will these efforts succeed, or will competition continue to escalate unchecked? As China rises from the ashes of sanctions to become a global tech powerhouse, the semiconductor industry and the world will never be the same.